So this morning, we are going to be looking at industrial relations in Barbados. Kind of very hard topic, not because it's an area that I'm unfamiliar with, but because it's a very wide topic. Industrial relations in Barbados can span a wide subject area. For instance, we can be talking about negotiations, we can talk about contracts, we can talk about strikes, we can talk about a variety of things. But what I have sought to do today, I want to focus us on the definition so that we understand what we are talking about when we speak about industrial relations. I also want us to look at the history of industrial relations without making it too heavy, just touch on some of the fundamental things that brought us to where we are. And then, of course, I want us to examine where we are today in Barbados. And actually, that third part of it is where I would want us to focus more of our attention for the period that we have. Industrial relations is the relationship between the employee and the employer for whom the employee works. So that's basically it in its simplest form. What you mentioned is a part of industrial relations system. When those two players don't agree well, we have what is known as a dispute. And that is a term that we are very familiar with in industrial relations. So it's the relationship between the worker and the employer that we are focusing on. But industrial relations is not just about the law, or although the law will influence industrial relations. You get that? Industrial relations is influenced by the law, but it is not the same thing as the law. And there is a diagram that I often like to refer to that gives us a kind of perspective. There are some flaws with this, just like anything else, but it helps to lend some perspective as to what industrial relations is all about. Now, we see the first circle. What is it that we have in the first circle? Inputs to the industrial relations system. The environment, legal, economic, political, social, shaping industrial relations. Now, the conversion process is how we move from inputs to outputs. And that is through what you know of a union on a day-to-day basis. Negotiating, mediating, advocating. But we have some very interesting points, the 3 bullets at the bottom, where I want to spend some time. In the conversion, how do we move from the political system and the economic system and from government workers and employers to getting wages and better conditions and rights for workers and so on? In that conversion, we have market relations, which is linked to the economy, what is going on in the country at a particular point in time. We have power relations, which is linked to the economy too, but is also linked to the political system. As you said, how you can influence people, the government, and keep them on their toes, and therefore how you can influence legislation. It also influences the opposition, because if an opposition finds that a government is not doing what the unions who represent workers want, what a wise opposition would do is jump on the bandwagon and commit to the workers that they will give them what they want. But it's more than to commit to it, it's to make sure that when you get there, you can make good on the commitment. So we came off of the plantation system. Then we went to the period of indentureship. So that period was a stark contrast between the haves and the have-nots. So the 1937 uprisings led to give workers voice. And I'm sure that back in that time, Clement Payne, the slaves, the workers who were oppressed, they were saying, I am doing this now so that my children, my grandchildren will never have to go through it. In the same way that we make sacrifices now so that our children, our grandchildren, hopefully wouldn't have to endure it. So voluntarism is what we had for most of our industrial relations life in Barbados. It prefers unions and employers coming together and talking over things. Sometimes it feels like you're going around in circles, talking the same thing, and it prefers that to state regulation. You hear about the social partnership. How many people feel that the social partnership works? You don't know enough about it, which is a flaw on our part. Anybody else has any view on it? You don't know enough about it to talk about it. You would just see the Prime Minister on TV. You would just see the union marching in 2017 and saying that we ain't getting the meetings. And you know that that's what you're talking about. But you know, so the social partnership in Barbados is based off of the voluntary system. But while we treat to industrial relations generally on a worker-employer arrangement, social partnership embraces all three of the actors, brings all three of the actors to the table, the government, the employers, and workers. And you discuss broad issues that are of interest to the country, first and foremost. But naturally, whenever the union speaks in terms of how whatever we are discussing can benefit the country, yes, but the implications it will have on workers and therefore how we can make sure that decisions are kept at all times in the interest of workers. Sustained economic growth and a restructured economy and increased production. I think that if you look at that as an objective, it's safe to say that our economic growth has not been sustained. But then there can be arguments to that. Maybe if growth had continued along a regular or normal trajectory, yes, but some people may say COVID-19 happened. But even before COVID-19 happened, remember we had a financial meltdown that led to the 2007-2008 crisis. So it says, or it shows you that although a social partnership or at the national level, as a country, we will have objectives, these objectives are not totally left up to us. There are external influences that would impact us, especially when you're a little dot like Barbados. The saying is that when these larger countries sneeze, we catch a cold. From the time this act came into place, what this act did is it started to regulate collective agreements. You had to have collective agreements signed off and everything, because if a matter goes to the tribunal, the collective agreement carries a lot more weight. But what it also did is introduce tribunals. And when we negotiated this Employment Rights Act, the contemplation was never that you're going to have a lawyer to go up to Employment Rights Tribunal. The contemplation was never that you even would need an IR officer, because every employee is not a member of the union. The thinking was that you should be able to go before the tribunal, and the same way how you would come and talk to me or express to your lawyer, you will go and explain yourself. But not so now. What we contemplated is not what is. Now, even for me to go on your behalf and present a case for you, I feel like I'm in law school. God spent days preparing and consulting legal people and getting case law, drawing from case law examples and so on. So our system of voluntarism that we have held dearly and preserved for the better part of our history between 1937 and 2012 is slipping away to us from us into a more regulated system. This is one of the things that we flagged to the Ministry of Labor since 2014. A number of amendments that the union has proposed, including the simplicity, because if a system is set up for poor people and you now need a lawyer to go to the Employment Rights Tribunal, we ain't getting money from. So thanks everybody. Hope you enjoy your lunch, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the 3 days session this week and go online and catch up on the others that you missed.